the top 5 best pros and the top 5 worst cons of living in the Canary Islands. Once you're done watching this video, you will have a much better understanding of what life in the Canary Islands is like. Let's get started with the first pro of living in the Canary Islands, which is that once you become a resident of the Canary Islands, you're eligible for a 75% discount on domestic air travel and boat travel. This is great news for people who want to live here permanently, want to settle down. They can qualify for this amazing discount. How it works is that, let's say you want to fly from the Canary Islands, let's say you're on the beautiful island of Tenerife, that's where I'm located now. To the right here, you should see the Teide, the third largest volcanic structure in the entire world. Let's say you want to travel from Santa Cruz North Airport to the mainland, to the peninsula. Well, if you want to fly into, say, Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, Malaga, you qualify for a 75% discount. If a regular airfare ticket would cost you, say, 200 euros, guess what? You would only end up paying 50 euros. So you save 150 and you only pay 50 euros. If you are a resident of the Canary Islands, you would qualify for a 75% discount. This doesn't just apply to air travel, it also applies to boat travel. If it's happening between the islands and the mainland, a 75% discount applies, assuming that you're a resident, right? Gotta have the resident card. So that's the first pro. The first con of living in the Canary Islands is that real estate is a bit scarce here in some cities. For instance, in Puerto de la Cruz or also in the south, you can expect to pay a much higher price for apartment rentals. Why? Supply and demand kicks in. The prices here have gone up a lot over the past years, especially since the last health crisis. Prices have climbed and climbed and climbed. More people have moved to the island than in any other year because, again, people wanted to escape regulations, restrictions, and they figured, hey, I can live on the beautiful island of Tenerife or Gran Canaria and I can have more freedom. I can just live life to the fullest, and many people took advantage of that during the past health crisis. So a lot of people moved here and they got a taste of what living on one of the Canary Islands is like. And because of that, you can guess what happened. Real estate prices started to increase. While that doesn't hold true for all cities and towns across the islands, it holds true for very, very specific places. Like I already pointed out, Puerto de la Cruz and also the south of Tenerife has seen a major increase in prices over the past 2 to 3 years. But that doesn't mean you won't be able to rent an apartment for a reasonable price. If you just go a little bit further away from the city, or if you want to rent something in Santa Cruz de Tenerife or in San Cristobal, you'll definitely find good deals. Just have to look for them. And like I said, only certain areas, certain cities have been affected and others haven't been affected as much or not at all. It's all about supply and demand. So how you can solve this issue is by moving to a city or town with fewer foreigners and with more empty real estate. So how you can solve this problem is by moving to cities or towns with more availability, with less demand and more supply. Pro number 2 is the low corporate tax. This is a hidden gem. A lot of people don't know about this. If you set up a company in the Canary Islands, and it doesn't matter which island you choose, what happens is that you can qualify for a 4% corporate tax rate, which is the lowest in the European Union. There are other places with very friendly corporate tax rates like Bulgaria, Romania, but the Canary Islands is truly a special place. It is part of the European Union, but it's still kinda isolated. It's kinda not part of it in terms of taxes. You do get a much better deal here than you get on the mainland. And like I said, this is a hidden gem. Most people don't know about it. They don't talk about it. But this is one of the reasons why entrepreneurs, digital nomads, they're moving here, they're setting up a company, they're getting their domicile here, and they're just taking advantage of this great opportunity. Think about how much money you can save if you want to build a company, right? You're located on one of the islands, you have your headquarters here, and you can qualify for a 4% corporate tax rate. And you're building a company that's based on capital, and you want to invest as much as possible. You don't want to withdraw much from the company. Guess what? A 4% corporate tax rate will allow you to retain a lot of profits that would have gone lost if you would have set up the company in a different geographic location within the European Union. Con 2 is the personal income tax rate. You see, there's a con here in terms of taxes, but there's also a pro. And the con is that since this is part of Spain, you still end up paying pretty high personal income taxes, especially if you start making more money. Guess what? In Spain, you'll be paying more taxes than in a different European Union country. Now, there are ways on how you can minimize your taxes legally, right? There's certain deductions or certain investments that you might qualify for, especially if you decide to go with the company setup. If you want to set up a company here, which is something we can help you with, by the way, then you can definitely do certain things to minimize your taxes legally. By incorporating a company in one of the Canary Islands and making use of smart tax deductions, you can definitely reduce the amount of money that you're paying to the federal government, which in this case is the Spanish government. But again, as a rule of thumb, the personal income tax rates are pretty high in Europe, and Spain is no exception. The third pro is the amazing work-life balance that you get to enjoy when living in the Canary Islands. This is a very obvious point. More people talk about this than any other point that we will address or have already addressed in this video. The work-life balance here is special. The mentality of people is different than on the mainland. Like, this is an island, and island people are very different. They are chilled, they're down to earth. So this is a very laid-back place, so people aren't in a rush to get things done, which again can be a pro or con depending on what you're trying to achieve. But generally speaking, if you have a very hectic profession, if you are an entrepreneur and you're really working hard to make an income, to build a business and to succeed, guess what? It's nice to have this calmness right outside. So while you might be having a very hectic life at home, like I do inside my apartment here, the moment I go down and I start talking to the people, it slows me down. It gives me relaxation, which is what I want, because life can be stressful, business can be stressful. With that being said, living in a place that is more laid back, that appreciates the little things in life, will go a long way in increasing your life expectancy, as well as increasing your fulfillment and just what you get out of life. Con free, which is a little con, it's not a huge one, and again, it depends on the location, depends on the town, city, where you're at. I have seen a little bit of an anti-foreigner sentiment increase here over the past couple of years. That primarily has to do with the fact that foreigners came here and started purchasing a lot of real estate. I personally have friends who purchased several properties here, and you can guess what that leads to. It leads to locals not having access to affordable housing, and that's always a problem, especially if the locals see that, hey, the foreigners with the deeper pockets are coming to our island or islands and they're buying the real estate that we need. And this is sad because salaries haven't been increasing that much, yet housing prices continue to climb and climb and climb. This is a definite problem here, but again, this is depending on where you're located. This is not true for every city or every town, but in certain places this has become a bit of an issue. If you stay until the end of the video, I'm going to give you a great bonus tip. Make sure you watch this whole video, because the bonus tip is very valuable and it's often neglected. Then let's talk about pro number 4, which is the safety. Again, something that you don't really think about or don't really consider, because you think the Canary Islands, part of Europe, should be safe. Certain places in Europe, or should I say many places in Europe, have become very unsafe in recent years. You can guess why that is, because of immigration from certain countries and other problems like lack of income, drug-related problems. All kinds of different things are happening in Western Europe that have led to an increase in crime, making cities less unsafe than they used to be. The Canary Islands is a very different location. Like, generally speaking, there isn't a whole lot of violent crime happening here. I'm not saying that violent crime cannot happen here. It certainly does, but it is almost unheard of. Like, I've never heard anything. I'm sure it does happen, so I'm not saying these islands are exempt from violent crime. I'm sure it happens, but it's not something that's very common here. And also, like, pickpockets, that kind of stuff is also not very common. And since, you know, this is a very communal place, you don't really have the metro, but you have good public transportation, but everything is pretty safe here. Con number 4, which is the dating scene. The Canary Islands is not an ideal place for dating. This might upset some people now that felt like, hey, I can come here and I can have great success in the local dating scene. This is not necessarily true. Like, I want to say that you can have good success dating locals here, but there's a lot of adjustment needed. What do I mean by that? Well, there are cultural differences just as much as there are cultural differences in many other countries. So people here, they live a slower paced life. So if you come from Western Europe, or if you come from Canada, United States, and you're used to a faster pace or just a different way of communication, or if you have different values, it will take some adjustments to plan in here. I'm not suggesting, I'm not advocating that you change who you are, but what I'm trying to say is that people here think very differently. They have different goals, they have different values, and in fact, a lot of people here are pretty happy with their life. You can look at people in the Caribbean or on the islands of Hawaii, they're pretty happy with their lives, right? They're not super money hungry, and maybe that's a good thing. But if you come from an environment, or if you are a person that values monetary success over relationships, it might be a little bit harder for you to date here, because people on these islands, they just don't value money as much as you might value money. I'm just saying, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, most people are pretty chilled. They don't care about it. They want to have a good life. They want to work. They want to enjoy it. They want to go to the beach every day if possible. They want to go hiking, or they just want to sit with their family and friends and have a good time. This is not a materialistic place. It really isn't. Pro number 5, the rent prices. I know I said that housing prices have gone up here, which is definitely true. However, in many places you can find very affordable, very good deals. You just have to look for them. And if you go a little bit further away from the downtown area, you can find amazing deals like what you can pay or what you can find here. You know, let's say you want to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, fully furnished 2-bedroom apartment. And the thing is, this is a volcano island. The further you go inland, prices keep dropping because people want to live, guess what? Right on the ocean. That's where you can expect to pay the highest prices. Because of that, if you go a little bit further away, even here in the city of Puerto de la Cruz, or even if you're in Santa Cruz, you know, if you go more inland, it will get cheaper. So depending on your budget, but if you want to have a nice 2-bedroom apartment, a fully furnished 2-bedroom apartment, and you know, let's say you want to keep your living costs low because you want to invest in your business, or for whatever reason, you know, you just have a certain budget, you can definitely find a really good deal for 1,000 euros a month. If you have a budget of say 1,500 to 2,000 euros a month, you can find a really nice 2 to 3 bedroom apartment even in the downtown areas of the major cities, you know, where you have everything nearby. You know, everything is within walking distance. You're not going to need a car. Why? Because public transportation is really good here. Just keep that in mind. Depending on where you want to live, let's say you have a budget of only 500 to 600 euros a month. You can even find a 2-bedroom apartment for that if you're willing to go further away from the city. So depending on how much money you want to spend, depending on, you know, your comfort zone, depending on what you're trying to get out, there are many different options available. But as a rule of thumb, renting here is still relatively affordable unless you want to live in one of the more sought after areas, downtown areas. You will be fine. Before I'm going to give you con number 5, make sure you stay until the end because I'm going to throw in a bonus pro that will blow your mind. Let's talk about con number 5, which is the high turnover of people here. This is a definite con. Like if you're trying to build relationships, especially if we're talking about foreigners, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, like a lot of the people here, they don't live here permanently. And why is that? Well, a lot of people are just trying to get out of the bad weather. So they're coming here for maybe a couple months a year, you know, have like a vacation home here like I do. So I come here for a couple of weeks and then I leave. And, you know, if there's enough time, I come back for maybe another month or so. That's what I do. And a lot of people live that kind of lifestyle, but that doesn't mean there aren't any people who are living here permanently. There are a lot of people. However, you know, since this is a very touristic place, the Canary Islands is a very touristic place, you have a lot of people visiting these places. Guess why? They're taking a vacation. Now, this might be good or might not be good depending on what you're trying to get out. However, if you're trying to build long-lasting relationships, I definitely recommend you to do that with people who live here permanently. Like if your goal is to remain on these islands for the rest of your life or for the majority of the year, you want to pay attention to the people that are doing the same, because again, you want to have a good inner circle. That's if you're social. If you're not social, maybe this is not so important to you, but I'm just saying that these islands have a bit of a higher turnover for a number of reasons. You know, the geographic location, it's very isolated and so forth. So make sure you consider that. Now, let me give you the bonus pro, a very important point, which is that this is a very strategic location. In the event of something like a war or a crisis, life is pretty relaxed here. So if we talk about what happened during the past crisis, and the people who were living here, they can tell you that this was pretty good here. This was heaven, you know. If you talk about the Canary Islands or Texas, you know, it's been pretty relaxed here. There haven't been that many strict restrictions here, right? It's been pretty relaxed. And the good thing about this place is you got the ocean everywhere, you got mountains, you know, you got the Teide on the island of Tenerife, so you can go hiking, you know, you can go biking, you can really do a lot of outdoor activities, which is conducive to, you know, improving your health or stabilizing your your health, whatever. Plus, in the event of something like a war or some other crisis, like a health crisis, is a good place to be. Are there any other pros and cons about living in the Canary Islands that you would like us to discuss in a future video? What are your thoughts about this topic? And if you need any help with obtaining a residence permit on the island of Tenerife or any other Canary Island, make sure you reach out to us. You should see our website displayed right below the video. Thank you for watching, and I see you on the next video.